Hello and welcome. This is going to be our first episode of the reading of the story of Joseph. I'm going to break it up into a couple different videos, so I hope that you can join me for each part. But we're going to go ahead and get started in Genesis 37. And if you would like to read along with me in your Bible, that is fine. If not, that's okay too, whatever you prefer. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and get started in chapter 37 of Genesis. I'm doing it a little bit differently this time. Instead of reading from the hardback or the hardcover Bible that I have, I'm actually going to just read from BibleGateway.com. I really like Bible Gateway because you can access so many different versions and translations of the Bible. So it's just really helpful in understanding certain things and cross-referencing. So it's something I definitely recommend. It is free to use. It's called BibleGateway.com. And I usually use the amplified version. So we're going to go ahead and get into the story of Joseph. And I'm starting in Genesis 37. So Jacob, or Israel, lived in the land where his father Isaac had been a stranger in the land of Canaan. Joseph was 17 years old, and he was shepherding the flock with his brothers. The boy was with the sons of Bilhah and Zilpah, his father's wives, and Joseph brought back a bad report about them to their father. Now Israel loved Joseph more than all his children because he was the son of his old age, and he made him a distinctive multicolored tunic. His brothers saw that their father loved Joseph more than all of his brothers, so they hated him and could not find it within themselves to speak to him on friendly terms. Now Joseph dreamed a dream, and he told it to his brothers, and they hated him even more. And they said to them, Joseph said to them, "Please listen to the details of this dreams which I have dreamed. We were binding sheaves of grain stalks in the field, and lo, my sheaf suddenly got up and stood upright and remained standing. And behold, your sheaves stood all around my sheaf and bowed down in respect." His brothers said to him, "Are you actually going to reign over us? Are you really going to rule and govern us as your subjects?" So they hated him even more for telling them about his dream and for his arrogant words. But Joseph still dreamed another dream, and he told it to his brothers as well. He said, "See here, I have again dreamed a dream, and lo, this time 11 stars and the sun and the moon bowed down in respect to me." He told it to his father as well as to his brothers, but his father rebuked him and said to him in disbelief, "What is the meaning of this dream that you have dreamed? Shall I and your mother and your brothers actually come to bow down to the ground in respect before you?" So Joseph's brothers were envious and jealous of him, but his father kept the words of Joseph in mind, wondering about their meaning. And then his brothers went to pasture their flocks near Shechem. And Israel said to Jacob, "Are not your brothers pasturing the flock at Shechem? Come, and I will send you to them." And he said, "Here I am, ready to obey you." Then Jacob said to him, "Please go and see whether everything is all right with your brothers and all right with the flock, and then bring word back to me." So he sent him from the Hebron valley, and he went to Shechem. Now a certain man found Joseph, and he saw that he was wandering around and had lost his way in the field. So the man asked him, "What are you looking for?" And he said, "I am looking for my brothers. Please tell me where they are pasturing our flocks." And then the man said, "They were here, but they have moved on. I heard them say, 'Let us go to Dothan.'" So Joseph went after his brothers and found them. One second, I'm going to take a drink of water. Okay, and now what we're getting into is the plot against Joseph. So when they saw him from a distance, even before he came close to them, they plotted to kill him. And they said to one another, "Look, here comes this dreamer. Now then, come and let us kill him and throw him into the wood or into one of the pits. Then we will say to our father, 'A wild animal killed and devoured him,' and we shall see what becomes of his dreams." Now Reuben, the eldest, heard this and rescued him from their hands and said, "Let us not take his life." Reuben said to them, "Do not shed his blood, but instead throw him alive into the pit that is here in the wilderness, and do not lay a hand on him to kill him." He said this so that he could rescue him from them and return him safely to his father. Now when Joseph reached his brothers, they stripped him of his tunic, the distinctive multicolored tunic which he was wearing, and then they took him and threw him into the pit. Now the pit was empty, there was no water in it. And then they sat down to eat their meal. So can you imagine that? They just throw their brother in this pit after plotting to kill him. They decided, because of the words of their eldest brother, that we're just going to go ahead and throw him in this pit and leave him here for dead. And then we're just going to sit down and eat our meal. Like, no big deal. Could you imagine? So anyway, so then they sat down to eat their meal. And when they looked up, they saw a caravan of Ishmaelites coming from Gilead, east of the Jordan, with their camels bearing resin for perfume and balm and myrrh, and going on their way to carry the cargo down to Egypt. Judah said to his brothers, "What do we gain if we kill our brother and cover up his blood? Come, let us instead sell him to these Ishmaelites and Midianites, and not lay our hands on him, because he is our brother in our flesh." So his brothers listened to him and agreed. And then, as the Midianite and Ishmaelite traders were passing by, the brothers pulled Joseph up and lifted him out of the pit, and they sold him to the Ishmaelites for 20 shekels of silver. And so they took Joseph as a captive into Egypt. Now Reuben, the eldest, was unaware of what happened, and he returned to the pit. To his great alarm, found that Joseph was not in the pit, and so he tore his clothes in deep sorrow. He rejoined his brothers and said, "The boy is not there, and as for me, where shall I go to hide from my father?" And then they took Joseph's tunic, and they slaughtered a male goat and dipped the tunic in blood. And they brought the multicolored tunic to their father, saying, "We have found this. Please examine it and decide whether or not it is your son's tunic." And he recognized it and said, "It is my son's tunic. And a wild animal has devoured him, and Joseph is without a doubt torn in pieces." So Jacob tore his clothes in grief, and put on sackcloth and mourned for many days for his son. Then all of his sons and daughters attempted to console him, but he refused to be comforted, and said, "I will go down to Sheol, which is the place of the dead, in mourning for my son." And his father wept for him. Meanwhile, in Egypt, the Midianites sold Joseph as a slave to Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh and the captain of the royal guard. And now we're going to go over to chapter 39. Joseph's success in Egypt. Now Joseph had been taken to Egypt, and Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, the captain of the royal guard, bought him from the Ishmaelites, who had taken him down there. And Yahuwah was with Joseph. And he, even though a slave, became successful and a prosperous man, and he was in the house of his master, the Egyptian. Now his master saw that Yahuwah was with him, and that Yahuwah caused all that he did to prosper in his hand. So Joseph pleased Potiphar, and found favor in his sight, and served him as his personal servant. He made Joseph overseer over his house, and he put all that he owned in Joseph's charge. It happened that from time to time he made Joseph overseer in his house, and put him in charge over all that he owned. That Yahuwah blessed the Egyptian's house because of Joseph. So Yahuwah's blessing was on everything that Potiphar owned, in the house and in the field. So Potiphar left all that he owned in Joseph's charge. And with Joseph there, he did not need to pay attention to anything except for the food that he ate. Now Joseph was handsome and attractive in form and appearance. Then after a time his master's wife looked at Joseph with desire, and she said to him, "Lie with me." But he refused, and said to his master's wife, "Look, with me in the house, my master does not concern himself with anything. He has put everything that he owns in my charge. He is not greater in this house than I am, nor has he kept anything from me except for you, because you're his wife. How then could I do this great evil sin against Yahuwah and your husband?" And so it was that she spoke to Joseph persistently, day after day, but he did not listen to her plea to lie beside her or be with her. Then it happened one day that Joseph went into the house to attend to his duties, and none of the men of the household were in the house. So she caught Joseph by his outer robe, saying, "Lie with me." But he left his robe in her hand and ran, and he got outside the house. When she saw that he had left his robe in her hand and ran outside, she called to the men of her household and said to them, "Look at this. Your master has brought a Hebrew into the household to mock and insult us. He came to me to lie with me, and I screamed. When he heard me screaming, he left his robe with me and ran outside the house. And so she left Joseph's outer robe beside her until the master came home. Then she told her husband the same story, saying, "The Hebrew servant whom you brought among us came to me to mock and insult me. Then as soon as I raised my voice and screamed, he left his robe with me and ran outside the house." Whew. And when Joseph's master heard this, and heard the words of his wife, saying, "This is the way your servant treated me," his anger burned. So Joseph's master took him and put him in the prison, a place where the king's prisoners were confined, and he was there in the prison. But Yahuwah was with Joseph and extended loving kindness to him, and gave him favor in the sight of the warden. The warden committed to Joseph's care all the prisoners who were in the prison, so that whatever was done there, he was in charge of it. Then the warden paid no attention to anything that was in Joseph's care because Yahuwah was with him, and whatever Joseph did, Yahuwah made prosper. And that is where we're going to stop for now. I just find this story incredible, and I'm sure you guys already see a theme here to where no matter what bad situation that Joseph is faced with, he always ends up wherever he's at. I mean, he was at Potiphar's house, and he ended up, and that's the captain of the royal guard for Pharaoh, and he ended up, being over everything until his wife lied about it. Lied about Joseph because he was mad that Joseph would not lay with her, wouldn't commit adultery with her. Then he gets thrown in prison, and now, because Yahuwah is with him, everything he does in prison is being blessed. It's just such an incredible story, and we're going to pick back up on it tomorrow. I hope that you guys all have a fantastic day. Praise to the Most High, and I will continue this tomorrow. Bye.